Magandang gabi po sa inyo lahat. Ang timing natin, partner.
Of course, despite our busy working schedules.
Yeah.
We always make it happen.
Yep, magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat at welcome again to our program, Kontra, Birada dito sa Radyo Bandido saka sa RJTV. Good evening sa inyo lahat, or good afternoon. It's still 5 o'clock, so good afternoon. And again, ako po si Atty. Mike Toledo, and kasama po natin ang aking partner or ang ating partner. Walang iba kundi si Atty. Karen Jimeno. Good afternoon, Atty. Karen.
Good afternoon, partner. And you're looking very handsome as usual in a suit. Never fails.
Galing ako sa tatlong meeting at sinigurado ko makabalik dito sa itong aking den kasi para sigurado ang signal ay malakas. At saka mas maganda-ganda yung hindi sa telepono, no? Kaya I made sure, I requested baka ma-delay lang ng konti. Kaya timing pag turn on natin biglang nakita ko na.
Yes, you made it before. Yeah. And ako rin pareho tayo, Attorney Mike. I'm as you can see, in the office right now, and making sure that I'm here for the 5 to 6:30, and then I have another meeting at 7. So,
mukhang maganda yung opisina mo, partner. Parang nasa high building ka. You're in a high building.
Yeah, that's true. With the golf course view in the background. So, it is, yeah.
I would say, sa Manila Golf?
Hindi, baliktad pala. Cemetery pala. Libingan pala ng bayani. Sorry. Maling, but I see greenery, so it's beautiful. But yeah, tama. Mali yung orientation ko. But it is a bit gloomy today. We're supposed to be experiencing a lot of rain showers, according to the weather forecast. But all in all, good weather pa rin. And today I'm very excited about our episode because we have a very special guest from the cabinet, and we're going to talk about a lot of, important issues in terms of reviving the economy. I know for a fact that this particular cabinet secretary has been very supportive about opening up the economy with the right health protocols. So I'm very excited to have this opportunity to interview him. So maraming salamat sa iyo, partner, at you made this happen.
In fact, kaka-text ni Secretary Mon sa ng assistant, si Camille, kung anong oras sila papasok. Sabi ko siguro mga anytime, 5:10, 5:15, that would be okay for the Secretary, to Secretary Mon Lopez. Kasi po ang ating pong panauhin ngayon ay walang iba kundi ang Secretary of Trade and Industry, si Secretary Mon Lopez. And one of the items or topics that we will be discussing, as we mentioned yesterday, we will talk about, aside from the things that was already mentioned by Atty. Karen, pag-usapan din po natin ang RCEP or yung Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. Isa sa pinakamalaking partnership in terms of the number of countries involved, close to 30% of global GDP, and the number of countries, major countries, also that are going to be part of this very, very important arrangement, which actually at the end of the day, it harmonizes the several bilateral treaties that were entered into by several countries like the Philippines. Kasi alam naman tayo, partner, di ba? The Philippines would enter into several bilateral agreements or enter into some free trade agreements, and ASEAN agreements, for example. And in effect, what we have been told is that our CEP or RCEP would actually harmonize all these bilateral free trade agreements, which is good because harmonization at the end of the day takes away the inconsistency or the confusion, and this will ensure that whatever is the objective of having free flow of goods and services, tariff-free, and protection of intellectual property rights and all that, will actually be realized. Kaya talagang timing partner, at tayo nagpapasalamat talaga dito sa ating kaibigan na si Secretary Mon Lopez. Despite his very tight and busy schedule, he has agreed to join us today. We'll find out naman kung nandito na siya. That, our technical team will be telling us once he is in. Am I correct, partner? We will be informed.
And while we're waiting for Secretary Mon Lopez, I think worth mentioning would be the opening up of so many different types of businesses because of Alert Level 2. So I've been receiving notices that, a lot of the gyms, including some of my favorite exercise studios like cycling and saddle row, which is rowing and cycling. They're opening again, electric studio, which is cycling, and then movie theater. So for everyone who's listening, at least you know that your options in terms of weekends, how to spend your weekends, they have more out there now. And I think
that's
we
good
have
to know.
our guest here.
I think hi son. Yung anak ko kasi kakarating lang eh. Welcome home. Welcome home, Abby.
Enjoy the interview.
Yeah. Well, catch you later. Welcome home. He just arrived from Barcelona.
Oh, wow.
Spain.
That's wonderful. No more quarantine. No more quarantine.
Wala na quarantine.
Wow, that's wonderful.
Buti pa nga siya, nakakapunta siyang Barcelona. Ako hanggang baklaran. Hanggang baklaran ako. But anyway, partner, I think nandiyan na si Secretary Mon Lopez. Is he already in?
Yes, I can see him.
Oh, okay. So, without any further ado, siguro partner, umpisa na natin kasi alam naman natin kung gaano ka-busy.
Good afternoon, Secretary Mon.
Good afternoon, Ma'am Karen, Idol, Boss Mike.
Good afternoon, classmate. As always, alam mo, kagaya na na-mention kasi yung Karen kahapon, si Secretary Mon ay kaklasiko sa UP. And talaga namang noon pa man ay masipag na talaga siya. At ako talaga natutuwa na siya ngayon ay head ng DTI. At nakita naman natin what he has been doing, what he has done as far as the DTI is concerned. Iba talaga ang na-accomplish ni Secretary Mon. And maybe that will even, partner Karen, maybe that is maybe a subject for a show in itself, no? Another program para to talk about his accomplishments since he took over as DTI Secretary up to present. But for today, partner, ang pag-usapan natin and is ang sinabi ko nga kay Secretary Mon, na pwede bang Secretary Mon na pag-usapan natin kasi I'm sure a lot of our listeners, our countrymen, our viewers are really not sure what RCEP is all about. No? Medyo it might become to something that is too academic to them, something that they don't really understand. Kaya sabi ko baka naman mas maganda po if you can spend time with us and explain to our listeners what exactly RCEP is or RCEP and bakit ito ay beneficial sa ating bansa. So with the permission of my partner, Atty. Karen, pwedeng tanungin na natin si Secretary Mon.
Let's get right to it.
Ano ba ang, can you kindly explain to us kung ano ba talaga tong Regional Comprehensive Economic
Partnership.
Yeah. Ano ba yan? What is that?
Sige, thank you classmate Boss Mike at saka kay Atty. Karen at saka sa inyo pong taga-subaybay. Magandang araw po sa inyo lahat. At just an introduction, kumokopya lang po ako kay Atty. Mike nung araw at siya po ang aming leader noon nung kami magkaklase. But okay, levity aside, try po natin explain ang RCEP. It's of course the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. Ito po yung pagsasama ng ASEAN. Alam niyo po ang Association of Southeast Asian Nation is like an FTA or a free trade area kung saan nagsama-sama ang 10 country ng Southeast Asia into an organized free trade arrangement area. And when you say free trade, hindi naman lahat ng produkto ay zero, but many of the products that are being traded within that particular FTA area are usually close to zero or may programa paano maibaba ang taripa so that will encourage more free flow of trade. And that would include both all kinds of products. However, just like in ASEAN also, meron ding mga exclusion list yan at parating na i-exclude po ang mga sensitive agriculture products which is usually the items of concern lalo na ng mga farmers. Example, yung rice, corn, sugar, hindi ho sinasama sa mga discussion usually yan kasi nga sensitive sa marami sa ating mga partners. Nevertheless, I would also say that because of this ASEAN partnership, strong partnership, nag-expand po ito over time to include 5 more countries. And that would be China, Japan, South Korea, and then Australia, New Zealand. So the ASEAN 10 plus 5 ay pumasok sa tinatawag na RCEP, Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, which is another name also for an FTA, but it includes other areas. So hindi lang ito about trade in goods, trade in services, but it also involves also some commitment on investment rules, commitment on how we can promote e-commerce, how we can protect intellectual property, mga ganong usapin. How can we promote micro SME to be part of the value chain? So parang kaya siya sinabing comprehensive, regional comprehensive economic partnership. Okay, so ito po, this RCEP is masabi na nating ASEAN-led. In other words, it emanated from the efforts or initiative of the 10 ASEAN countries and to expand this FTA with the other countries as mentioned. It is also considered as a very large free trade area because yung RCEP coverage accounts for almost 1/3 of global trade. No? So 1/3 sa trade, 1/3 then of global GDP, domestic product, and a market of 2.3 billion people. This is basically the population in the 10 plus 5 countries, 2.3 billion. The region is also an important FDI destination. Ibig sabihin, pinupuntahan ng investments kasi imagine, nandiyan ng Japan, ng China, Korea, of course, the Singapore, and then Malaysia, Philippines, and all that. So, puntahan ng FDI. And also, at the same time, marami ring FDI na nanggagaling from RCEP to outside the RCEP areas into the world. No? 47% global outward FDI. No? So, in other words, what we're just saying is medyo malaki yung sakop ni RCEP. And when it comes to global manufacturing, 50% are in these RCEP areas. 50%, kalahati ng global manufacturing output. Kalahati rin ng 50% of global automotive products. At sa electronic products, 70% of the global electronic products nandito sa RCEP countries na to. So it's a very important market area. Kaya tinatawag nga mega trade deal ito. And then just to marami pang ibang studies that I can mention later, but in essence, the basic question, makikinabang ba tayo dyan? And the RCEP, basically, nagparaan tayo ng studies sa mga magagaling na mga ekonomista, and ang lumabas sa studies talaga nila ay makakatulong ito when it comes to yung GDP ng Pilipinas, aakyat ng by 2 percentage points, ang poverty incidence, mapapababa. Yun naman ang yung overlying mga natin objectives talaga dito na kailangan bumaba yung kahirapan, no, yung poverty incidence bababa ng 3.6% percentage points. Tapos talakas ang exports, may improved trade balance, etc. But I must also immediately add na so ang RCEP hindi lamang sa trade in goods. Kasi the fact na mas magbubukas ang market ng iba kung saan pwedeng mag-export ang Philippine products, the fact na mas maraming market opportunities, it will also invite investments into the Philippines. Kasi in other words, pagka ang manufacturing ay maglo-locate in the participating country of RCEP, it can be allowed to sell to the other RCEP countries with more market access. In other words, yung mga tariff rates ng mga produkto that eventually will be exported will be brought down, or yung timing nung bringing it down, yung tariff, sometimes upon entry into force, sometimes over 10 years, over 15 years. But the bottom line is that it will gain market access to these other countries. So what does it mean? It will encourage foreign investors to locate in the Philippines or in other RCEP participating countries. So, hindi lamang trade promotion, kundi investment promotion. Kaya yun yung maganda dito na minsan kasi nako-connect lang ang FTA into free trade movement, trade movement of goods, but really it does attract investments, and that's very important because investments will create jobs, etc., income for the people. So kaya po we are really pushing for this, the passage or the ratification of RCEP sa Senate, and it has been a widely discussed topic in especially last month bago nag-recess ang Senate because ang nangyari may mga agricultural groups, mga NGOs na nag-oppose dito for fear that maapektuhan daw yung kanilang output. But we have been assuring them na again, yung mga agriculture products ay hindi naman nag-open up dito. But instead, the market access of their products have improved. Ibig sabihin, nabuksan pa ng mas malaking percentage ang merkado nila. I mean, mas makakabenta tayo, let's say, ng yung mga, let's say, pineapple, preserved, papaya, cacao, coffee, chocolates, lahat ng pwede nating maisip na even tuna, no? Lahat ng mga pwede nating ibenta sa labas ay mas makakabenta tayo dahil nagbubukas yung ibang market para sa atin. If we are
Sekmon, if I may, no, I'm glad na na-raise mo na yan kasi yun nga, no, yun ang naririnig natin sa mga critics, detractors and oppositors, no, partner dito sa RCEP. Ang sinasabi nila, bakit pag pinayagan daw itong RCEP as it is sa ngayon, no, hindi daw ready ang mga farmers, ang mga fishermen, ang mga manufacturers, ang mga producers na to compete against the industries also or the products being produced and in these other countries. Yun ang palagi nilang grounds nila na we are not yet ready to compete. We are not yet as big as them. If you allow a no tariff regime to be implemented within the members of RCEP, ang mga farmers daw at lahat ng mga even the small scale businesses ay masasagasaan daw. Totoo ba yun, Segmo?
Yeah, that's related to my question. It's a good thing you asked, Attorney Mike.
Yes, okay. So let me answer that. So una-una, hindi naman totoo yun dahil sa ngayon, from where we stand right now, ang ating trade, may mga FTAs na tayo to a certain extent, aside from nakuwento natin kanina, yung ASEAN, and being part of ASEAN, the ASEAN has an FTA with each of these. ASEAN Japan, the ASEAN South Korea, ASEAN China, etc. No, so, hindi malaking opening ang kailangan dito because of our current ASEAN plus one FTA. So we've been a globalized country. It's not as if ngayon lang tayo papasok sa isang FTA. So I guess that's an assurance na right now we've been competing with the China, Japan, and Korea. May mga FTA na tayo through the ASEAN. At may bilateral din tayo like Philippines, Japan. Meron tayong bilateral dyan. And in other words, we've been competing. But looking into the imports getting into the country is one thing. But ang kailangan tingnan natin talaga is our ability naman to export also to their markets that are opening up. No? So I think nagbigay tayo ng example kanina, and maybe I can cite some more. Like for China, for this RCEP, nakapagbukas pa ang China ng market for our, let's say, preserved pineapple juice, coconut juice, pagdating sa mga paper, printed paper, mga electronic products, sound signaling equipment. Sa Japan, nakapag-open pa tayo ng more products when it comes to fish fillet, tilapia. So maraming opportunities, pineapple, coffee. So if we look at it that way, was maraming na-open up pa for our agriculture products na if we don't ratify, hindi natin ma-enjoy ito dahil ito nabukas lang for RCEP for the Philippines. So may mga ganong detailed products per country na mga na-open up, no? So that's just citing a few examples, but there would be other products for na-open up for the Korean market, like tilapia again, papaya, durian, soybean oil, and many other products. So isa lang yon, Mike, na talagang mga benefits nito. And if you really think also about it, the fact that the RCEP, being part of RCEP, it also allows us to improve access to many of the inputs, even if you talk of agriculture inputs. So yung mga, let's say, 74% of Philippine importation of fertilizers are from RCEP parties, like from China, Indonesia, Malaysia, Korea, Vietnam, Japan. So ano siya, it will encourage or improve yung competitiveness ng agri-products natin, agri-farmers, kung mas madali tayong makakuha ng supply ng fertilizers, insecticides, ganun din, no? We source it from RCEP countries, China, Malaysia, Indonesia, Japan, Korea. Agricultural machinery, we also source it from Thailand, China, Japan. So we have to look at all these angles na hindi yung papasok dito na worry tayo sa competition. Sanay na tayo sa competition. Pero ang magandang tingnan dito, mas dadami yung market natin. Tapos mas makakakuha pa tayo ng mga inputs para sa ating operations. And maybe one more point that I'd like to put in, the RCEP also allows us to, we call it cumulation. Ibig sabihin, pwede tayong mag-source ng iba pang inputs basta RCEP countries at maka-export, let's say, magsosource tayo ng tela, sinulid from some of these other countries. Dito gagawin, and that product can now be exported to another RCEP country. Dati, ang pwede lang natin gawin ay kung sino yung kausap natin, dun lang tayo sasabihin nila, pwede kayong magpasok dun sa market na yon kung 40% rules of origin. Yun yung pinuduce ninyo sa Pilipinas ay 40% galing sa Pilipinas. Medyo restrictive. Meron tayong, pero ngayon, kahit hindi 40% from the Philippines, kahit nag-source ka sa China, sa Japan, or Korea ng ibang inputs, pwede mo pa rin ibenta sa Japan. So, it allows more accumulation of mga raw materials. There are many other benefits nitong na nabuksan because of RCEP. Pero ang worry ko talaga dito, kaya I was really telling we presented this to the Senate and other sectors. As of now, lahat ng countries in the RCEP ratified already the RCEP. Ibig sabihin, as of January 1, tumatakbo na yung RCEP. Umaandar na siya. Si Philippines hindi pa nag-ratify. Tayong maiwan.
Yeah.
So imagine all the others will get to enjoy already the benefit of the RCEP. For example, yung sinusupply natin, example lang, pineapple in Japan. If we don't yet ratify, other countries will get to
selling it cheaper.
The lower tariff rates for pineapple. Maagawan tayong market. Masusulot tayo, ika nga. Yung dating mataas na market share natin, pwedeng mawala at mahirap ma-recover. Kasi tayo, hindi pa tayo nag-ratify. The others will start enjoying that. Another thing, investors, when they go consider where to invest, dito na ako sa Vietnam, dito na ako sa Thailand. Kasi when I invest there and manufacture in those countries, makaka-penetrate ako doon sa ibang RCEP countries. Si Philippines, hindi part of RCEP. Next time na yan. Sayang because as you know, yung ating FDI, di ba, foreign direct investment, as of the last report, January to November, ang ganda na ng growth. Di ba? Nakakapawi na tayo versus last year, 2021 over 2020 and better than 2019. Yun yung mga report natin na lumabas na recently. So mawawala yung momentum natin. Baka magpuntahan na sa ibang bansa. So, nakaka-worry din dahil mawawala yung opportunity sa atin. Yun lang, no? Yeah. Yun yung worry talaga natin.
Secretary Mon, I have a question about there are certain sectors in agriculture, including those in meat production. So I've heard this from people in the industry sa pork, poultry and fish. This is also in the news recently.
Yeah.
And they're saying that if there are cheaper imports of particularly poultry and fish, that it will kill the local industry. So do you think that it's a valid concern?
Ganito po ang situation sa like the poultry and fish. Wala po tayong in-open up na in-offer na products na that will really be competing with these local producers. So that's the thing eh. Yung sinasite nila na yung mga in-open up was really the opening up of before pa sa WTO noong 1990s. No, 1990s pa. So they're referring to those opening of the market. Ibig sabihin, hindi naman lowering of the tariff rates in these products. But for RCEP, precisely, we did not add more products that are directly competing with all these farmers. So wala dapat silang i-worry dito sa RCEP. Nadamay na lang si RCEP kasi they were citing na yung dating opening, nahirapan sila sa market. But in RCEP, we did not offer more than what is already, out there in the market.
You mean our obligation under WTO? Is that what you're saying, that we're not offering more than that?
Yeah, we're not offering more than that. Tapos, the other thing is yung mga protection, yung mga tinatawag na mga trade remedies can still be utilized. Kasi isa rin sinasabi nila, hindi na natin magamit yung trade remedies sa WTO. For example, yung mga safeguard duty and mga ganun, pwede pa rin gamitin yon. So, I think yun yung kina-clarify namin eh. But what is important really, this is with or without RCEP, we agree naman with the agri sector that this is an answer also to the earlier concern. Papasok yung imports and gano'n. But the real solution there is not to be protectionist and wag papasok yung imports. The real, job or commitment of government and what government should provide is really the continuous support to this sector. In other words, tulungan natin mag-improve yung productivity, bigyan mo ng, let's say, sa crops, bigyan mo ng seeds, ng fertilizers, sa mga livestock, bigyan mo ng mga
feeds. I think feeds is like 70% of the
feeds. Bigyan mo ng financing, lahat ng mga pwedeng support dapat ibigay pa rin yon. And that is really dependent on may program dyan ang Department of Agriculture at naigpisan yung budget ng DA na kailangan i-support sa kanila. And in fact, that's not only for agri, even for industry. I'm also batting for hopefully a bigger budget that can allow us to support the industry sectors, lalo na for the SMEs. Kasi we want them to be competitive. Again, with or without RCEP. We want them to be able to export, to be competitive, high productivity, higher yield, by having the best machine, technology. I'm sure si Mike, Attorney Mike, would in their business operation, puro high-tech yung mga machines niyan, and you really need those. And yung SME cannot afford that. That's where government can help or should help. And that is what we mean by government really providing the necessary support to the production sector, whether agriculture yan or industry, para they can really bring their costs down and bring their prices at competitive rates and can compete with imports, even without RCEP, with or without RCEP. That's why that should be treated separately. That should be budgeted, that should be supported. So yun yung aming proposition dito. Don't hostage our participation in RCEP because we will lose out more opportunities, but we should do what we have to do, essentially. So gawin natin yung dapat gawin, which is government should support the business, the production sector to lower their costs, increase their productivity.
Yeah, I completely agree with that Secretary Mon. And also in terms of bringing in the foreign investments, I think that apart from just being part of RCEP, if our tax incentives are not really attractive compared to other countries, then they will still choose to, bring their manufacturing or other types of businesses in different countries who are also members of RCEP.
So a good point that you raised also, partner, on the tax, which I think, of course, to a certain extent, the CREATE law has somehow, and FIST law as well as the other implementing laws have somehow address, to make us a more inviting place to invest. But I just wanted to comment, Sekmon, doon sa sinabi mo kasi na parang ang dating sa akin or siguro sa ating mga nakikinig din is that those skeptics or detractors are sometimes using old issues, rehash issues which were against the WTO pa and perhaps the other free trade agreements, and they're trying to lap it up as an argument against RCEP, or RCEP, which wala namang basis. But siguro, Sekmon, maybe it's also important perhaps that ma-explain natin sa ating mga kababayan na baka naman akala nila pag nagpirma tayo, pag na-ratify na tayo, ay biglang mag-implement to. I'm sure, Sekmon, may time frame to. May what you may call milestones or time frame. In other words, it does not immediately take into immediate effect. Tama ba yun? At can you explain para naman kinakabahan yung iba, while perhaps they agree with the vision, with the objectives of RCEP, pero para sa kanila, but we're not ready now, so wag muna. So, ano kaya, Sekmon? Ano bang assurance mo sa kanila?
Okay, the assurance really is, again, dun sa mga concerned na mga agri-sector, again, an assurance that hindi tayo nagdagdag ng sensitive products na agriculture products, the rice, corn, sugar, meat, and all that, the frozen meat and pork meat and beef, etc. So walang dinagdag. So in fact, wala silang dapat ikabahala or i-worry. At doon naman sa, let's say, all the products naman na let's say nasama natin, karamihan mga industrial products, pag oras na nag-ratify naman tayo dito, hindi naman agad zero yung mga produkto na yon. Siguro you're talking of maybe first may 60 days yan bago ma-put into force. Tapos may entry into force yan, no? And some probably will have a timetable na to go down, to reduce the tariff from this to that, hindi naman zero, pero over 5 years, over 10 years. So ganun naman, may program of tariff reduction. So hindi yan like zero na kaagad after 60 days when, entry into force. So, at saka all of this, we're drawn up, ibig sabihin yung mga products na sinama natin dito, were drawn up in consultation with the sectors really that would be covering itong mga produkto na to. So, and again, the assurance na walang sensitive agri products dito. So, yun lang. I think dun lang hindi naman dapat talaga sila mag-worry. And at ang kailangan talaga masuportahan yung sector nila. Parang yung nangyari ngayon sa rice tariffication law na sige, i-allow natin yung importation, and there will be importation only to the extent na may gap yung supply versus demand. Kasi kung meron namang local supply, then yung local supply ang gagamitin. Pero hindi naman pwedeng may shortage tayo at imagine what will happen pag may shortage. Yung presyo ng produkto will go up, and we're seeing that in before in rice, kaya nga nag-rice tariffication, in fish ngayon yung galunggong over 250 to 300, dati 140 lang yan. So maraming issue diyan sa sa agriculture production kasi nga may yung supply is not enough to meet the demand. But nevertheless, we should just continue to work on improving supply, the production, para wala tayong shortage. Tulungan natin yung sector na yon. Yun naman ang sinasabi natin.
Yeah, but this has been really helpful, Secretary Mon, just to understand ano ba yung kasama sa RCEP and a lot of the misconceptions about how it will affect our local industries. About the other, I haven't seen kasi the provisions of the RCEP. So would you say that in terms of let's say if we're sufficient in a certain type of good, will it allow the country to reduce or temper the importation for that specific good, or it's more of just like everything depending on who their importers are can come in at zero or reduced tariff?
So what the trade environment that we have right now, unless merong mga tinatawag na non-tariff measure or or for example, for safety reason, kailangan kumuha ng clearance, import clearance. Let's say, right now we have that for meat, kasi may meat inspection para siguradong safe yung import. May mga ganong requirements pa rin. Yun yung tinatawag na non-tariff measure. Otherwise kasi, tariff na, may 30% or 20% application dun sa produkto every time you import. So, all this will be it's part of our trade measure. So it's an open system. Anybody can import. I think to the question, hindi naman nagiging selective sinong pwedeng mag-import except for some products nga. That's also one of the issue. But I'll not go into that because hindi naman relevant sa RCEP. But frankly, practically all products naman are open. I mean, we have a sort of a more siguro liberal environment. We have started to reduce tariff rates, tinanggal yung mga, as much as possible, yung hindi sensitive products. It can be imported by anyone. Walang pinipili. No? I guess mas mahirap kasi pag may pinipili or yung mga nag-i-issue ng mga import licensing, baka may favoritism, yun yung mga tinanggal over the years. In the past na to, no? Historically. So, but again, the amount of being imported, of course, would depend on may demand ba sa local. You don't, an importer will not over-import kasi wala siyang bebenta. Pagka malulugi siya. So talagang market fixing, correcting, hindi fixing, market correcting mechanism. No?
Yeah.
So, yan yung nangyayari ngayon.
But based on the government commitments, it's not within the authority of the government to intervene in the market and then suddenly stop the importation of certain goods under the RCEP because there might be like some effort to protect an industry suddenly. Wala naman. Walang mechanism.
In fact, the idea of RCEP is really to have a more liberal market access to all the participating countries. So the task really is to reduce all the barriers in terms of tariff or in terms of import licensing requirement. So that's the idea behind the RCEP. But again, each country would be offering anong products yung isa-subject ko sa liberalization, yung ano yung ilo-lower ko. So again, just for comparison, prior to RCEP, kaya sinasabi ko, konti marginal naman yung mga in-offer natin dito. I mean, Philippines perspective. For example, in the way we trade with some countries, the tariff inclusion is, in other words, percentage of tariff lines or tariff value that are included in the previous FTA, let's say ASEAN, China, or ASEAN, Korea, may mga percentage inclusion yan. Example na lang, maybe some are 88%, 85%. Ibig sabihin, yun na yung mga included na dati ng FTA. So, kaya sinasabi ko nga, marami na tayong nare-reduce na mga tariff, no? As part of this ASEAN FTA. With RCEP, this number, this percentage inclusion, were simply brought up at the minimum 91%. So, plus 4 percentage points, plus 3 percentage points. That's as far as the inclusion is concerned. And again, these are not all are agri products. Marami dito industrial products. Kaya nga sinasabi natin, sanay na tayo, we're really part of the global value chain. We talk of electronics. We're part of the global value chain. We import, we export. We import, we export. Ganyan talaga yung sistema ngayon. And the 86% inclusion before is just being brought up to about 91%. So that's the kind of movement in terms of products inclusion ang nangyayari because of RCEP. And let me repeat, hindi kasama ang sensitive agriculture products. So,
Sekmon, clearly, no, sa mga sinagot mo from the very beginning hanggang ngayon, klaro-klaro na talagang mas malaking advantage, mas malaking benepisyo ang makukuha ng Pilipinas at ng mga ng ating mga kababayan, no, that will benefit from it, kaysa hindi sumama. Of course, at the end of the day, correct me if I'm wrong, but in any trade agreement, there will always be some threats. There will always be some risk. But if you weigh, diba, pag winay mo yung risk, mas lamang pa rin na sumali.
Mas
Kaya-
yung opportunities.
Opportunities. Okay, kaya dapat sumali tayo. Kaya ang tanong ko, Sekmon, and then before we go on a break, no, ang tanong ko, kapag samantalahan na natin ang presence mo, kung ganun, clearly, there are clear grounds for the RCEP to be ratified. And you gave already a plethora of cogent reasons why we should ratify. Why is it that it is still not ratified, and it's, if I'm not mistaken, it's still in the Senate? Why the delay?
We better ask the Senate.
Yeah, I think for me, Attorney Mike, based on what I observed, and I went into this interview as well, asking the questions that were, now I'm realizing a lot of misconceptions, but I think that it might be some of the reasons why, Senate is dragging their feet because of the misconceptions of the people
Ganito
opposing
na lang. Siguro, if I may say, some senators are saying they just need to study it further. So yun naman ang sinasabi nila. They're not saying no to this, but they just need time to study it further. So, I mean, sige. So we'll see when they regroup, when they open again the session around May. We'll see.
But we're sort of running out of time in a sense, di ba? Because siyempre, May, pagkatapos ng May, nag-adjourn na sila, election na, and it will take some time. It will be in kailan ba? June na yata. No?
Yeah, I guess.
So paano yan habang yung ibang bansa ay nakikinabang na sa mga
Correct.
benepisyo na nabigay ng RCEP?
Tama. Kaya yan po, yan tayo dapat mag-worry. Yung ibang bayan, masusulot pa yung ating market sa ibang bansa. Nasabi ko nga kanina, they will get to enjoy the lowering of tariff, let's say, ng China, ng Korea, and ang mag-supply na dyan, Vietnam at Thailand, and all that. Maagawan na yung, not right now, we're very strong when it comes to pineapple, mango, coconut.
Yeah.
Pwede mawala sa atin yan. Isa pa, ang immediate concern ko dito yung investments. Kasi yung trade, sometimes yung lowering of tariff may probably take time. Di ba? Sabi ko nga, hindi naman drop agad yan. Sometimes may a schedule of tariff reduction sila over 5 years. So, I mean, hindi agad-agad yan. But ang investment, the decision, if an investor makes the decision now, they will probably go to an RCEP country already. At yung Philippines, hindi pa ratified, let's consider that later. Let's go first to those who are part of this. Because if we are part of this, the country is part of where we are going to invest, and makaka-penetrate na kaagad tayo dun sa ibang RCEP country. So that is my fear also. The investment part. Yeah, and as you know, lahat tayo dito, alam natin, investment equals jobs. Trabaho. So, trabaho ng ating mga kababayan dito. And di ba, post-pandemic, we're talking of maka-generate tayo mas maraming trabaho as much as possible. So, pag nawala yan, sorry na lang. No? So, ayoko sabihin, pero parang goodbye Philippines pag gaganyan. So, wag naman sana.
We'll take a short break, partner, and then after that, balikan ulit natin si
Yeah,
Sekmon.
and I'm glad that
us, no?
thank you, Secretary. And I think when we come back from our commercial break, I want to talk to Secretary Mon about what he touched on, pandemic, and that's really I think I want to shift to that, yung post-pandemic naman, and what DTI has been doing.
Okay, we'll take a short break. Wag po kayong umalis. Babalik po kami. Kasama po natin si Secretary Mon Lopez. Let's take advantage of his presence. So don't go away. Stay with us.
Ang ating kapangyarihan ay para sa mga walang kapangyarihan.
Salamat, Senator Laila de Lima, sa pagpasa ng batas sa 4Ps. May laban kami sa gutom at sakit. Kasama mo kami sa laban mo, Senator Laila.
Yan si Senador Laila. Kahit ginipit at ipinakulong, nagtatrabaho, lumalaban. Ibalik ang hustisya.
Angat Pinoy, sabay-sabay babangon. Angat Pinoy, angat ang hanap buhay. Mga kababaihan, iangat natin. Angat tayo lahat.
Angat Pinoy, party list ng micro, small and medium enterprises ng kababaihan. Angat Pinoy, tutulungan umasenso ang mga negosyo ng kababaihan upang guminhawa ang buhay ng kanilang pamilya.
Angat tayo lahat.
Tandaan, Angat Pinoy Party List.
Nandito po tayo sa ating programa Kontra Birada sa Radyo Bandido at sa RJTV. At maraming salamat po na kayo ay kasama namin ngayon para makinig sa ating panauhin sa gabi ito. Walang iba kundi ang Secretary of the Department of Trade and Industry, si Secretary Mon Lopez. At of course, kasama natin ang ating partner, si Atty. Karen Jimeno. Atty. Karen.
Hi, magandang hapon sa lahat. And thank you again, Secretary Mon, for being with us today. You've so far, napakalinaw po na explanation mo about RCEP. And I think that it will really benefit our country. And I hope that, Senate can finally decide this so we can, as you said, not lose out on all the potential foreign direct investments and the jobs that they will create. And you touched upon a very important topic earlier, and this is the effects of the pandemic. And like you said, yung job creation is even more crucial now that we are in this post-pandemic phase. So perhaps you can share with us like what the DTI has done to restore jobs and what types of relief or maybe assistance micro and small to medium enterprises can enjoy or avail themselves of in this post-pandemic era.
Yeah, thank you again, Atty. Karen, Atty. Mike. The DTI has always been, of course, being part of IATF, has been really pushing for reopening ever since, reopening of the economy. Mula 2020 pa, at the height of nung pandemic, pinag-uusapan na yung pagbubukas pa ng mas maraming sector, even at the time ng mga ECQ, MECQ, remember those days, no? And hanggang GCQ. And to a certain extent, masabi natin na ang IATF has been adjusting also. Of course, ang primary consideration natin noon dahil matindi ang virus noon, nakakamatay, talagang nag-lockdown tayo to buy us some time maka-build ng healthcare facilities. And thank you to the private sector, yung grupo nila Mike, and all the other conglomerates, ang daming tumutulong dito. At ang importante nun to save lives. But ang maganda din po dito, the IATF has really adopted a balanced approach. In other words, nag-allow tayo ng mga ibang sector na nag-reopen. To me, that is the most important support government can give by allowing sectors to reopen and to basically bring back the jobs, allow the negosyo to open. Kasi pag close sila, syempre walang revenue papasok, yung empleyado nila either i-maintain nila kung may pondo pa sila or hindi muna nila papapasukin. So kawawa, trabaho, maapektuhan. But as we were reopening, nakita natin yung unemployment rate bumababa ng bumababa. It's sabihin, mas maraming nakakatrabaho. In fact, if you compare yung employment figure nung nag-umpisa yung pandemic, January 2020, tinignan ko uli yung data, ang Philippines noon, ang employment, 42.5 million. Over time, fast forward to December 2021, last year lang. So halos 2 years yan. Simula ng 2020, katapusan ng 2021, dalawang buong taon. Naka-generate tayo ng additional 3.7 million employment, new jobs. In the pandemic ito, no? So, ibig sabihin, talagang ang maraming bagay dito. May yung reopening of the sector, yung pagpasok ng mga bagong investment, at kahit pandemic, may mga nag-expand. Of course, merong sector din na nagsara or naapektuhan or nagsara temporarily, nag-slow down. Hindi maiwasan yan, lalo na yung mga karamihan dito, yung nasa mall, lalo na yung
or salons, yung personal services, massage services,
and tourism, no? Yun yung talagang naapektuhan because of the nature of the business. Kasi di ba yung tawag 3 Cs, either close office, close store, o umiikot daw yung virus yan, o kaya close contact, kadikit mo, o kaya crowded na lugar. So 3 Cs tawag doon. Yung mga activities na yon tulad ng restaurant, barbershop, salons, yung mga
spas, massage services,
lahat yan din matagal nag-close. Pero unti-unti na rin nabubuksan yan. Ito yung sinasabi kong nag-open up naman yung economy. Yan yung pinakamalaking nagagawa pagdating sa bringing back jobs. Kaya yung kaninang kwento ko, 42.5 noong January, noong December 2021, 46.27 million. So 3.7 million jobs, new jobs na create itong 2 years na ito. Pero dumadami yung workforce, kaya in terms of unemployment, yung worst case nung 2020 April nung nagsimula yung lockdown, alam niyo yung unemployment natin tumalon from 5%, yun yung pre-pandemic, 5% ang unemployed, naging 17.7% unemployed. But over time, nung nagre-reopen, bumaba ulit ito. Ibig sabihin, nagbukas yung mga negosyo, bumalik yung trabaho, bumababa yung alert level. So, ang unemployment natin, hindi na 17.7, 6.6 na yung latest. I think, end December. So, but as mentioned, before pandemic, 5%. So, kailangan habulin natin yung 6.6 down to 5%. Mas marami pa dapat mas magbukas na negosyo or kaya more investments para makadami ang trabaho. So what are we doing? Number one, reopening of the economy. Tuloy-tuloy po yan. Hindi lang ngayon yan. Pinag-usapan yan mula 2020. Reopening. Number two, of course, we continue to attract more investments. We continue to lend out, napapautang para yung mga SME na nahirapan makapagbukas ulit or makapag-pivot or mag-iba ng negosyo para kung ano yung pandemic-friendly na business. Kasi maraming SME nga, as mentioned, may mga nagsara kasi talagang for the longest time sarado. So may mga ganyang storya na tinuruan din natin mag-digitalize yung e-commerce. Natuto na sila yung dating brick and mortar, yung may physical store, ay minulungan silang mag-e-commerce ngayon, nakakabenta sila ng mas marami dahil e-commerce na sila nagbebenta. Of course, so ayan yung mga malalaking businesses, mga businesses na lumaki pa rin, lumago despite the pandemic. E-commerce, yung delivery system, mga nagmomotor, delivery, etc. So yan yung mga nadagdag na mga trabaho. Nag-shift ang trabaho, in other words. So may pautang, may mga pa-seminar para matuto ng iba pang negosyo, may reskilling ang TESDA, ang government, maraming in-offer na mga programa. Let's say, yung mahilig sa agriculture, tinuruan ng agri-negosyo. So, yan yung mga ginagawa ng government. For DTI, yun nga, may mga pautang, may livelihood kits din tayong pinamimigay sa mga at the barangay level. No? So, ito grant naman, hindi pa utang. So there are those things na kaya siguro tulong-tulong yan. Of course, yung construction sector, tuloy pa rin. Naka-hire ng marami yan, over 600,000. So kaya itong kinuwento kong 3.7 million more jobs, lahat yan mga nakatulong sa pagpapalaki ng trabaho pa rin. Dumami uli yung trabaho na na-offer natin. But we're still not, of course, happy. Gusto pa rin nating dumami pa yan para bumaba talaga yung unemployment rate further.
Yeah, but thank you, Secretary Mon. It's really wonderful to hear good news. You know, it makes us more optimistic because a lot of people think pagka-pandemic parang puro unemployment lang. But it's great to know maraming concrete programs from DTI about it.
Partner, gusto ko rin tanongin kay Sec Mon. That's good to know about the unemployment. Pero two things lang. How about on the underemployment? Gumanda ba yung statistics with respect to underemployment? And for a fact, I know, and give credit to the Duterte administration and to the economic team, which includes Secretary Mon, na talaga naman at the start of the Duterte administration, the objective was to really lower the poverty incidence in the country. And you were on track to do that.
Correct.
Unfortunately, this pandemic happened. So perhaps two things lang, Segmon. One, on the matter of underemployment. And then number two, yung target nyo on poverty incidence. Sana po tayo doon.
Oh, okay, so siguro I'll tackle the poverty incidence kasi naalala ko lang yung, from 2016 to 2019, yung target na ma-reach down to I think 16% from 22%. Na-hit na agad in 3 years. No? So, kaso nag-pandemic noong 2020, so nag-worsen uli yung poverty. But imagine in 3 years, malaki yung nabawas ng poverty incidence. Halos na-hit na kaagad yung target. Yung underemployment, of course, worsened nung pandemic time. Kasi imagine yung mga employed ngayon, naging alanganin, semi-employed, di ba? Imbis na 8 hours a day, ang na-afford sa kanila 4 hours lang. So talagang underemployed, lumaki. But over time, nung sabi ko nga, nung nag-reopen at nag-hire back talaga on a fuller time basis, nag-improve uli yung underemployment. Bumaba uli yung underemployment rate. Pero for a time, nag-worsen din yan. So, I guess all told, we really just have to sustain itong mga efforts to improve the economic, the business climate para makaengganyo ng more investments. And this is para mag-create ng mas maraming trabaho. Kasi on top of that, yung reopening that we are talking about. And even at alert level 2, I would say, kasi maraming tanong, bakit data alert level 1 na? Ang sagot ko nga, really, if you really look into alert level 2, halos alert level 1 yan. You know, alert level 2 opens practically all sectors. Alam niyo, hindi na lang kasama diyan casino. Yung sabong. Pero yung isabong, may mga nawawala na nga sa isabong. Pero yung isabong open rin yan for revenue purposes eh. So, ibig sabihin, mga casino, I think some of it open din. So, practically open naman lahat. And if you talk of the operating capacity, we're almost 100%, lalo na outdoor. At saka, remember, ang meron na lang operating capacity numbers would be the 3 Cs, yung restaurant, barbershop, etc. Yun lang yung may 3 Cs. But even if you look at the operating capacity, they're 50% plus, di ba, ang indoor 50%, pero since nasa lugar siya, let's say NCR na mataas ng vaccination rate, over 70%. Tapos may plus 20% yon. Tapos may plus 10% pag may safety seal. So 50 plus 10 plus 20 is 80% indoor. So pumunta ka sa mga restaurant, mga ganon, it can load up to 80%.
Yeah, I noticed, Secretary.
Diba, halos napupuno na ulit.
Saturday. Yeah, I've been actually eating out Saturday, Sunday, yesterday, and it's so wonderful to see the economy
masayang
alive. Puno.
Alive na. At pag outdoor, yung 70% plus 20 plus 10, again, is 100%. So, it's almost alert level 1. Frankly, napaka-indifferent ko na kung 2 or 1. Ang sabi ko nga, ang kailangan lang i-adjust natin ngayon are the protocols. In other words, for example, protocol, may maraming request, yung mga acrylic barrier, tanggalin na yan, yung mga gano'n. Or kung mataas.
Yung mask.
Yung mask, I think, ito na lang ang may iwan, no? Attorney Mike. Attorney Karen. It's really, yung basic, yung minimum public health protocol, yung mask hugas, the number one mask will still be there. Tapos vaccination, of course, and ventilation. Ngayon, mas malaki yung weight itong mga ventilation kasi airborne daw ang COVID, no? Especially the Omicron. So in fact, yung mga acrylic barrier, wala nang use yan. So we will be formalizing, we're proposing tanggalin na yung mga acrylic barriers na yan kasi nga kung airborne, hindi naman makakatulong yan. Yeah,
and Secretary Mon, I've seen people, acrylic barrier nga sa restaurant, pero magpapasahan ng pagkain over the... So naisip ko, ganun din yan. You can transmit it so easily, but... So yeah, I love it. I love how rational you're thinking as well.
So, tapos ang mangyayari na dyan, before we know it talagang unti-unti tayo nagpupunta na into endemic stage. Yung journey na to, matagal yan, naka 2 years na tayo dyan. So unti-unti nakikita na natin yung cases are getting milder and actually the protocol in a way is changing. Di ba? Yung quarantine, tinanggal na. And then eventually we are really moving towards self-regulation and self-regulating. Kasi the virus will still be with us. So hindi mo mawala yan. Hindi naman natin tinarget mag-zero. So it's like a flu or maybe like cough and colds will be there and that if the virus will continue to be just mild, it will just be there and everyone will eventually get that. So parang ang kailangan na lang yung mask, hugas will still be there at saka yung vaccination and better ventilation para lang hindi dumami yung may sakit. In fact, when you talk of may sakit, ang babantayan lang natin, and this is another change in mindset. Ang dapat tingnan na natin, wag na yung daily cases. Bantayan natin yung severe and critical numbers.
Okay,
Ilan-
we're on the same point as that. I've been saying that to Attorney Mike for a long time because
Yeah,
it's so alarmist when you think of the cases. Pero
Yes.
kung ubot-sipon lang, asymptomatic, it's
no
like,
need.
yeah, I agree.
And we saw
Yeah.
that in Omicron na maraming nag-Omicron, hindi na na-report. At punta na sa bahay, and palagay ko dito sa atin, halos lahat tayo, yung pamilya natin, at nagpahinga tayo ng 3 days, or at least nasa bahay tayo, kung may sipon or lagnat ng konti, 3 days wala na. So self-regulation, self-testing, kaya yung antigen test, pinupush ko parate, i-allow na sa bahay. So ngayon, pwede na, home test and all that, available sa drugstore. But yung importante yung self-regulation, doon na tayo papunta talaga. And tanggalin na yung mga acrylic barriers.
Yeah, I am very happy. You know, Secretary Mon, I've been following you and IATF through since the past 2 years since this pandemic started, and I was always cheering for you every time you'd get interviewed with your recommendations to open up the economy.
Thank you.
I was in the US up until 2020 when this pandemic started, and I could see the difference with the way they handled it. Of course, they have their own shortcomings, but in terms of keeping the economy open, I think it really helped the US a lot. So when I came back here, I was seeing your points of view and your inputs to the IATF, and I always agreed with your inputs. So I was like, buti na lang andyan si Secretary Mon to really give sense to the IATF in terms of what their decisions would be. So thank you and congratulations also.
Thank you, Attorney Karen. Credit to the IATF kasi parang ang nangyayari, it's a group na maraming debate yan, but over time nagkakaroon ng consensus pagka talagang nakukumbinsi naman. So everybody right now is talking about how to strengthen the economy. So hindi dati economic team lang nagpupush yan. Ngayon everyone, even the DOH and all that, they're also conscious of bringing back the economy kasi again, marami nang na-vaccinate. Tapos nagiging malakas na yung panlaban sa sakit, tapos kaya nagiging mild na rin. So parang yung journey natin, unti-unti we're getting there na maging endemic siya. We don't have to push for it. Dumarating na talaga dyan, and less of regulation, except the mask again, hugas, ventilation, vaccine. Less and less, ibig ko lang sabihin yung government-imposed alert level and really moving towards self-regulation. Tingnan mo ngayon, mga pamilya ngayon, pag crowded, yung anak, huwag kang masyado dun sa mga masisikip or crowded. No? Self-regulation na. Or pag medyo masama pakiramdam, hindi na mag-PCR yan. Mag-isolate na kaagad sa kwarto yan. So ganun na yung nangyayari ngayon. And frankly, because of what happened in the past 2 years, while we allow people to go out, even children to go out, alert level 2, tingnan nyo, konti pa rin yung lumalabas. Ibig sabihin, self-regulated talaga yung mga tao ngayon. And thankfully, para bang na-train tayo lahat, at saka nasanay tayo, pwede palang nasa bahay lang tayo. Dati kasi labas no? So, ganun na natansin natin.
So for me, my question, Secretary Mon, especially since we're nearing the end of this program, matatapos na yung February, and I think the IATF will decide again soon as to what the classification would be. Do you think that the recommendation will now be to move to alert level 1? I know that the mayors have thought about, have recommended that as well, some Metro Manila mayors. So what can we expect, do you think, in terms of alert level and then economy opening up more?
Yeah. So again, let me go back to, I believe that the economy has opened up already a lot. So I will just leave it to the parameters, the data. Meron naman kasing sinusunod dyan na pag napasa yung parameters na yun, yes, we can go to alert level 1. I won't argue against retaining alert level 2 or going into alert level 1. Yun naman yung my thinking there. Kasi nga, I'm confident with the current state na nagre-recover na. You've seen the numbers already. Again, I mentioned halos lahat 100%. If only the 3 Cs have the operating capacity, but when you talk of manufacturing, when you talk of IT BPM, export, they've been 100% even nung ECQ. Yun yung mga napaglaban natin no, na para tuloy-tuloy yung economy, the major part of the economy, allow 100%. At that's why export, yung export natin nag-grow ng I think 17-18% versus 2021 versus 2020 and even higher than 2019 pre-pandemic. Ang FDI sumipa ng 52% growth 21 over 2020 and 26% growth versus pre-pandemic. Ganun kalakas yung sinipa niya. And alam niyo po na in Southeast Asia hindi tayo kulelat, we're number 4. Dati, before the third time, we're number 6 in the ranking. We're now number 4. Ang average annual FDI natin nasa 8 to 9 billion every year. Before, it's about 3 billion.
That's impressive.
I'm not criticizing the previous because the 3 billion also grew from a lower number in previous years. So it just shows that the Philippines continue to really build on the gains year after year or administration after administration. Yun yung maganda. And hopefully the next administration will surpass this annual average $9 billion FDI. So that's what we want to see.
Yeah, I think if the next administration will continue a lot of the programs that you started, then I think, it's doable.
Atty. Karen, siguro it's worthwhile to mention. Sorry to kumakain ng time, but yung mga
please.
Yung pinasa ng Senate and Congress, kaya nagpapasalamat tayo sa kanila, yung pinupush po ng economic sector, yung economic team, yung PSA, yung Public Service Act, yung para dumami yung players sa mga sectors, sa telco, sa shipping, etc. Yung retail trade law, Foreign Investment Act, all these are setting the right foundation for that will attract more investments moving forward. So
actually,
I saw the announcement on that note, Attorney Mike.
If I may, kasi that's a very good point that you raised that, Secmon, because exactly, the PSA has been asked, and in fact, that's another topic altogether that we can discuss about the Public Service Act, the Retail Trade Liberalization, and the Foreign Investments Laws you mentioned. Pero yun nga di ba dapat talaga pumasa tong RCEP because this will complement yung mga laws na yan, yung mga tatlong laws na yan.
Tama,
diba?
Tama.
Diba? Kaya kung hindi mo pinasa tong RCEP, you are actually taking away the impact na mabibigay ng mga batas na yan. Yung Retail Trade Liberalization, PSA, Foreign Investments Act, di ba? Kasi they complement each other. Therefore, there is a really strong reason na kailangan talagang ipasa na yung RCEP.
Yes. Salamat po. Tama po yan, Attorney Mike. Tama.
Yeah, and ako naman, idadagdag ko lang some good news that I read also. The DTI this week also announced that with the impending passage of the amendments to the Public Service Act, there are already about 5 European telcos that are interested in entering the country. So, for me, lalo na tayo, we've gone mobile and then a lot of work from home arrangements. This will really help the ability of people to be connected in the Philippines and to have really high quality telecom services.
Yes. Tama po yan. Yan yung marami nang nag-i-inquire noon pa lang. Pero nadidiscuss sila pagka 40% limited yung kanilang equity participation. Kasi nga naman, mag-i-invest ka ng malaki tapos I won't be the decision maker in that business. So nagiging siya. Deterrent, no? But now natatanggal yung mga ganong restrictions.
Kaya nga yung Retail Trade Liberalization which was before, before pa to. Because of that, kaya nakapasok ngayon yung Uniqlo. Nakapasok yung IKEA, yung lately lang. At isa pang malaking kumpanya. All of these companies, when the Retail Trade Liberalization law was passed, which lowered the limit in terms of investment as well as tinanggal yung maraming mga red tape requirements, nagpasukan, partner, yung mga pangalan na ito, mga branded names. And can you just imagine with the recent other related laws, and pati na rin itong RCEP, I wouldn't be surprised kung magdadaksakan talaga ang mga iba't pa pang mga branded names which at the end of the day will provide more choices to our consumers. Yun lang naman talaga, di ba? Quality
Yeah.
prices, competitive prices,
Better
and then
service.
exactly.
And more jobs. And more jobs.
And more
Yeah.
jobs, yeah.
At ang maganda dito, nakahanda ito, makikinabang dito yung next administration na with all this good setup ng business climate, sana matuloy-tuloy nila yung pag-attract ng investments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And apart from more jobs, I would add nga more taxes for the government as
revenues.
well. Because, because, with the limited availability of brands here in the Philippines, a lot of Filipinos also tend to buy abroad things that they can't find here.
Oh.
But if they have it here, then, they'll just end up buying here and then pay the taxes
The
will also go
revenue.
to the government. Yeah.
That's true.
So,
And more choices for consumers.
yeah.
Si Mike, maraming mabibili si Mike na.
Alam mo naman yan, laging well-dressed.
Oo nga.
So on that note, Secmon, Karen and I, and of course the Kontra Birada team, no, and of course our listeners and viewers, talagang kami po ay nagpapasalamat at you took time out. In fact, you went beyond an hour explaining to us RCEP, its effects, and the advantages na kailangan na dapat talaga sumama tayo, pati na rin yung mga katanungan ni Atty. Karen on what the DTI is doing, no, to make sure that we survive the post-pandemic and of course the success of your programs, no. We would really like to thank you, no, for being with us this afternoon. Sana naman po this will not be the last kasi siguro partner, di ba, tanungin din natin si Secmon in detail in the future about the Public Service Act, amendments to that old law, no? It was a more than 100-year-old law. And then pati na rin yung Retail Trade Liberalization Act and the Foreign Investments Act. So,
yeah. And I hope
thank
po
you very
kayo
much.
madala, Secretary Mon. I know that today it took really a lot of your time considering how busy you are. In fact, I kept looking at the time and thinking, sana hindi pa makahalata si Secretary Mon, but don't worry, next time that we'll have you, we can keep it short.
Nako,
you can come in
sabi ni
at
Mike
your
kanina sa akin,
convenience.
short lang.
Yeah, so I was so happy when you extended beyond an hour. But next time, if you're only free, 30 minutes, 15 minutes,
Yes.
we'll take it, whatever time you have. Yeah.
Para sa inyo at saka sa ating kababayan, ma-explain ito, masaya na po kami.
Thank you so much, Secretary Mon, and good job so far talaga. We are very fortunate to have you in the economic team. You've done so well during this administration, so we congratulate you for that.
Ay, salamat po.
Maraming salamat.
Team effort
Salamat.
ng Team Duterte. Thank you sa lahat. Thank you sa
Thank
inyo,
you.
Atty. Mike, Atty. Karen.
Thank you.
Classmate, maraming salamat. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Secretary Mon.
Thank
Yes,
you, thank
bye.
you. Nakasama po natin and together with our partner, Atty. Karen, wala iba kundi si Secretary Mon at kami po ay nagpapasalamat sa kanyang attendance dito, no, despite his very busy schedule. So we'll take a short break and when we come back, we'll continue our discussion. So thank you, don't go away, stay with us.
Thank you.
PBA Party List for Youth and Sports. Tuloy ang pagtulong sa inyo. Eagle Financial Medical Assistance magbibigay ng scholarship focusing on youth and sports. Yeah.
PBA Party List.
Guys, palabas na ng ospital si May pero kulang pa daw siya ng 10,000. Ambagan sana tayo.
Sige.
Dito nyo na lang lagay kung magkano yung kaya nyo.
Ako naman nakaisip nitong ambagan, kaya akin na lang ang sobra.
Maliit man o malaki, ang korupsyon ay korupsyon. Kapag hinayaan, sisirain ito ang kinabukasan ng bayan. Kaya maglakas loob sumigaw ng,
Hindi sa'yo yan!
hindi sa'yo yan.
A straight question deserves a straight answer. Presenting straight from Radyo Bandido in partnership with the Philippine Star. An ongoing question and answer series with candidates for the May 9 elections. This week's candidate, Vice Presidential Aspirant, Senate President Vicente Soto III, answers the question straight. This is straight from Radyo Bandido.
What is your most important message that you would like to relay to our countrymen?
That I possess the qualities, the kind of leadership that the country needs, aside from experience and competence. I can perhaps capture it in 3 words. Kakayahan, katapatan, katapangan. I think, as I said, the competence and experience in addressing the national concerns, I will be able to hit the ground running on day one. No learning curve necessary. We know the problems. We have the solutions. Perhaps that is what I would want to impart into our countrymen.
Thank you, Senator Soto.
That was straight from Radyo Bandido. Stay tuned daily till Election Day for this ongoing series.
Back at narito tayo ulit sa partner. Magandang gabi ulit, and that was a very, very interesting interview
Very
we had with
informative.
Sekmon, no?
Yeah,
Oo.
super informative. You know, even for me, Attorney Mike, it's really, I mean, as a lawyer,
Na-change na rin yung background mo.
yeah, I know. Actually, I had to pull down the covers kasi pag kanina, di ba, you see the view maganda. Pag gabi
maganda.
na, feeling ko para kami aquarium na may light dito, and then you
I
can see
see.
people
I see.
outside. From outside naman kami nakikita.
Okay.
So I pulled down
Okay.
half and half.
Okay.
But it's interesting kasi the background change over time for me, nawala na yung view, and then now you just see like the window. But for you, nagbago rin, naging kotse na. So I can see that you're also on the go. But you know, Attorney Mike, I'm so thankful that you invited Secretary Mon Lopez and that he spent a lot of time with us today, like over an hour, and carefully explained the RCEP, which is right now like a very important partnership in the region that the Philippines has not yet ratified. But you know, to a lot of people, kasi even for me, it wasn't clear how it was going to affect us. So it was good to hear from someone who really knew what the provisions of the agreement would be, and also knew how it would affect the industries. So again, thank you to Secretary Mon Lopez for joining us today and explaining the RCEP, and also giving us insights on how the industries are recovering now with the pandemic, and also some of the concrete programs that they have, even skills training. So kung yung mga nakikinig kayo ngayon, if you are out of a job or you feel like you're underemployed, you might be able to benefit from retraining or skills training that the DTI and TESDA provide.
And that's true, partner. These are good points that Sekmon was able to explain and to raise. Siguro nga kasi it's a bit, in a way, it's a complex agreement, no? As in any trade agreement is. But at the end of the day, really, it's what is important is the ability to explain to our people in the simplest terms possible how it will benefit. No? And sabi nga ni Sekmon, he's hoping that the Senate, of course, will agree to ratify it soon. Kasi nga, ang House nag-ratify na nga, rather na, di ba, pumasa na sa House, a treaty needs a Senate ratification. And sabi nga niya, kung tayo ay mahuli, even assuming that eventually we do ratify, but kung medyo na-delay tayo, kagaya na sinabi niya, baka na mawala yung mga markets na tayo ay nandun pa. The markets that we perhaps dominate or the markets wherein we provide a certain product, baka lumipat na sila kasi nga hindi tayo member ng RCEP. So I guess, partner, nananawagan tayo sa ating mga kaibigan siguro sa Senado na siguro sana pag-aralan na lang mabuti at paspasan ang pagpasa ng RCEP.
Yeah, and for those who are in the industries, yung mga tinatawag na sensitive industries, including agriculture, there's really nothing to worry about because the RCEP does not really also allow importation of commodities in sensitive areas.
Sensitive products, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, yun, partner, like today went by very quickly and I learned a lot. I'm being honest, like hindi ko lang binubola si Secretary mo, but I really learned a lot. So, thank you again for arranging our interview and thank you everyone for joining us tonight, spending your afternoon and now early evening with us. And tomorrow, 11:30 a.m. again with me and Attorney Mike.
Thank you so much, partner. As always, it's a pleasure and I like your incisive questions. Siguro pag-isipan natin, partner, kung sino ang magiging panauhin natin or guest sa next Thursday. Pag-isipan natin because maraming mga issues na kailangan i-tackle natin. So, on behalf of my partner, Atty. Karen Jimeno, sa ating mga kasamahan dito sa Kontra Birada at sa RJTV, Radyo Bandido, to all our listeners, thank you so much for joining us. Kita-kita ulit po tayo bukas, 11:30 to 12. Enjoy your evening, enjoy your dinner, and